Welcome to this week's episode of the IBC Roundtable, where every Tuesday we're diving deep into your favorite subject matter, the infinite banking concept. This week we're going to peel back the onion on probably the most prominent issue, and that's paying down debt. Isn't that the thing we've heard the most over the last 10 years as people apply this concept today?
It's the first thing, right? When you hear the idea or you read the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, you immediately say, I want to be my own bank. I have debts. I have debts at other banks. Why would I do business with other banks? Why doesn't it make sense that I create my own and then I refinance the debts of my bank? So at least the payments and the profits come to me.
Well, it's the simplest thing to apply this to immediately. We all have this mountain, and now we're just saying, why wouldn't I do both things? Why wouldn't I pay down the debt and grow towards the future?
Now, I know we're going to struggle with this in this episode, Joey, of the financial freedom formula is when our passive income, that's buying assets to produce income, is greater than our monthly expenses. That means paying down debt that frees up monthly expenses. But we are going to have to stay focused on this episode, and I promise you that we will. And I love it. In this episode, we're going to break down the three different types of debt, or the way we look at it, whether it's emotional, practical, or financial.
That we have to cover all those, because sometimes the black and white doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk too in the way that we pay down debts, and we need to prioritize the ways that we are paying down debt, the specific ones. We're actually going to give you a tool and focus on how do we pick the right debts to pay off first, and even some that we might not even pay off.
That's right, because those are going to be in that zone that you don't need to worry about anymore. You're going to focus on the right thing, and you're going to get to financial freedom a lot faster as a result.
This episode is action-packed with those sort of things. So if you want to know how to pay off debt and you want to figure out the best way, most efficient way, and prioritize it, let's belly up.
Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
All right, welcome into the IBC Roundtable. Today, I'm your host, Joey the Italian Stallion Murray, joined as always by Russ. You love him, you hate him, the idea guy, he's full of something, Morgan. Russ, how you doing, brother?
Man, it was better when you practiced it in my office than that. I'm doing good, though. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
All right. Also around the round table, we have downtown Ernie Brown, the man of few words. But when he does, 10 minutes later, you know it's going to be smart. It's going to come out way better than it would coming from me.
Going to articulate it pretty well.
Articulate. Welcome. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. Good afternoon, guys.
Good to have you. All right. Now joining us for the first time as a coach. You've heard him on our show as a client, sharing knowledge bombs, but you now have him as a coach, the Sherpa, Mark, the pilot. This is your captain speaking. Haraguchi, the man between two ferns. Welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going?
That was a good first try for Joe. I think next week we're going to let Ernie take over.
I'm okay with that.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. This is something new that we're starting. We're having amazing feedbacks. We're really appreciative for your listening into this. This is where we get to go deeper. Today, we're going to go deeper into a topic that a lot of us need help in, and it's how to pay down debt like a boss.
Like a boss.
And
you have
like
to say
a
it
boss.
that, right? Yes, this is a serious subject, though, right? This is something that so many people are facing. They've gotten themselves into debt in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it was through college, student loans, some sort of bad decisions along the way, or maybe an investment that went bad or a business went bad. But we're going to talk deeper about how we can actually utilize the infinite banking concept to pay down debt faster, more efficiently, and ultimately to get to financial freedom as fast as we can.
Well, this whole conversation reminds me of a cartoon where someone would show up to a financial advisor's office, and the cartoon quote was, "I have nothing saved up in my accounts. I retired today. Now here's your chance to be a hero." Right? I mean, that to me epitomizes where people are when they are covered up in debt, right? They are really, they sometimes can't see what potentially is out there because debt is on their shoulders. And I think it's such a great topic for us to talk about today. Later on in the Inner Circle conversation, we're actually going to have a guest speaker, one of our friends, someone who travels all over the country teaching people how to get out of debt using the infinite banking concept, someone that we've learned a lot from. So I'm really excited to get to that. But Ernie, tell us, I mean, you're day to day, you're having conversations all the time with people. How often is debt coming up, and what are some of the things that you're hearing as challenges that they're facing in regards to debt?
Yeah, I think everybody that we're talking with has debt. There's very few people that we talk with who have no debt. And probably there's two types of people we're talking to. The type of people where all they want to do is get out of debt. And then there's people who understand that they've got pretty good debts and they're okay putting their cash somewhere else.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think? Do you think there's a such thing as good debt or bad debt?
Absolutely. And I think that's the discussion that is not being had a lot of times, is education of what is good debt, what is bad debt, and could good debt actually become bad debt, and could bad debt become good debt? I've heard that several times, and it's just in our conceptual understanding of what are we using money for, what are we acquiring things for.
Which I think that's a great lesson to be learned here, is to properly put debt where it is. In light of where are we heading, if we know where we're heading, like the actual financial end is financial freedom, right? Passive income must be greater than my monthly expenses. Well, part of your monthly expenses includes debt, but does that include all of your monthly expenses?
Well, I love that even thought process, because one, we have to come up with the assumption is, if all I'm focused on is debt, what else can I see? Right? I mean, Mark, you're from the state of Hawaii, which has one of our favorite authors, right? Robert Kiyosaki talks about assets and liabilities. The definition of an asset is what, Ernie?
Is something that puts money into your pocket.
And the definition of a liability then would be the opposite, anything that takes money out. And most of the people that we are meeting for the first time, have they been buying assets in their life or liabilities in their life?
Well,
always liabilities.
Mostly liabilities, right? Because expenses, cars, houses, and other things, boats. We were just talking about boats a second ago, like boats. Those are things that are fun, but they are liabilities, things that take money out of our pocket. Well, when we're in our objective is to get more passive income, money coming to us than money going away from us. We have to focus on that. Now, but there's also risk in doing that. What do you think are some risks that we potentially could fall trap to, Mark, if we don't, if we get too debt focused?
Well, yeah, if all we're doing is focusing on eliminating debt, then we're not looking at the long game. We're so tunnel visioned on that everything else is going by us and we're missing it. I mean, there was the
opportunities. You're talking about opportunities, Mark?
Right. Thank you. Yeah. The opportunities that if all you're staring at is just that one little thing that you're viewing as a problem, there are opportunities coming by.
Why do you feel like people focus in on debt other than looking for opportunities?
I think that's all they've, I think a large portion of people, that's what they've been geared to believe is, hey, you know, just go ahead and, pay off your debt and everything will be fine. Pay off your house.
Yeah. Why do you think, Ernie?
Well, I just met with somebody today. It's kind of perfect timing. And we're almost clear, putting final pieces together, connecting the dots. And this girl's issue is she's been paying off debt. And we're talking about the only thing she can do is get out of debt. That's all she's thinking about doing is getting out of debt, getting back to zero. And when she does that, the only opportunity she has is to go back into debt, if that's the mindset.
Well, let's break out what you just said there, because I think for some people that could go right over their heads. Imagine this like parallel line just running across the page, and that parallel line is zero. Then imagine you taking a line directly vertically down from that, where that's when you go into debt, and you're slowly working yourself back, paying off debt. And so think of this like stair step where you're moving up toward that zero line. And what Ernie says is that we spend all of our effort, so we get every extra dollar that comes in, and our goal and objective is to pay back onto that debt, right? So we don't have any extra money. We have nothing above the line. Everything is below the line. We're just trying to pay off the debt. And then, like you said, it doesn't matter what the next thing is. There's going to be a water heater that goes out in the house. There's going to be an air conditioner that goes out in the car. There's going to be a boat that we have to buy, want to buy, whatever the appropriate word is. You get my point, is that we then do what? We go down again. And then we just fight that battle over and over, trying to get back to zero. Where if we are not focused on trying to build assets above the line while still paying off the debt, paying off debt is not a bad idea, but the way that majority of America tries to pay it off, Joey, is a bad idea. Change my mind.
No, I'm not going to change your mind. There's nothing to change, because the reality is that most of us do get focused in on trying to get back to zero our whole lives. And we look up in our 50s, let's say, and let's say we've done a good job. Like we have saved the quote unquote interest of all this debt because we paid it off faster than normal. But now what we're doing is we know what's inherently the truth about building wealth is it takes time. You cannot compound on money that has just started to compound. It has to take time. And what we're doing then is we're saying, okay, I'm looking up at my 50s or maybe 60s and saying, now let me see how fast can I get this money to compound? And we're going against the very laws of how money works.
Well, I would also challenge too that we've mentioned the concept, Mark, on the show, reticular activating system. You remember that?
You're going to have to reactivate my reticular system there.
I need to reactivate it. So that, Mark, when you bought the Nissan, right? That what's the name of the truck? It's a Nissan
Titan.
When you got the Titan, I wanted to say Tundra, but that was
heavy duty.
Yeah. When you got that Titan for the first time, you're like, this truck is boss. It's got all the things I want in it. And you start riding down the road. And how many other Titans do you start seeing around you?
And everyone copied my idea.
Exactly. Well, that concept is when we tell our brain something's important, our brain starts focusing on it, right? Well, the same thing is true when we talk about money. If we are so debt focused, all we can see is how to get out of debt. How many opportunities do you see?
Zero.
See, you don't even really
Tunnel vision.
You don't notice my Range Rover riding around you, right? Because you're focused on your Titan.
You don't have a Range Rover, Russ.
Dang it.
Just
I do. It's a mini one. It sits on my office in my home office on the table.
It's not driving on the street.
It's not really big enough to ride in.
It just has a Tundra tag on it.
Exactly. You just don't notice the other opportunities, the other things around you, because you're so focused on what your mind is telling is important. So in order for us to start seeing opportunities, I'm going to say that you have to start not absolutely focusing on debt. What are some other potential risks that you can see?
Well, I think whenever we buy into this idea of paying down debt as fast as possible, we start doing things that put us at more risk, like 15-year mortgages, for instance. We've actually talked about this somewhat before, but I remember specifically when I was in the mortgage business, having a gentleman come to me. He was in his 50s, maybe mid to late 50s, and he's looking at the next 15 years, and he says, man, I need to pay off this house so that I can be ready for retirement. And so we flipped him from a 30-year to a 15-year. His payment went up, but he's like, you know what? It's worth it because I'm going to be able to pay it off. It's a lower interest rate, quote unquote, and I'm doing air quotes there. And within about 3 months after us doing this refinance, he lost his job. This was right around 2008. And I remember him distinctly calling me or emailing me multiple times over the next 2 years, where he almost lost his house because he could not find a job. And he had significant equity. I'm talking at least 50% of his home was paid off. but he was still trying to get that last 50% paid off more quickly. And in the meantime, lose his job. Now he has a much higher liability every month to pay with no income. He actually went backwards in terms of his risk profile because of what we did. I actually felt guilty for a while because we did it, but of course it was his choice. But anyway, that's just a good example, I think, where we can lose focus and put ourselves in more risk.
Mark, do you have any experience with or just more thought on this as why paying off debt? Because really, again, the name of our show is Paying Off Debt Like a Boss.
Thank you.
And it almost sounds like, though, that we're hammering paying off debt. Like we're almost saying that paying down debt is bad. And I don't want that to come across, but I do want to show that paying down debt, we have to do it wisely. Because if we don't do it wisely, the opposite effect, the thing that we don't want to happen, can happen. Is there anything that you can add to that, Mark?
Yeah. I was pulled into a system years ago of paying down debt as quickly as possible. There was, it was a company and they came up with a formula and you would borrow from one pot to pay off another pot. And it looked great on paper. They talked about all the savings you were going to have. The challenge with that, though, is, we've said it before, is equity going to put food on the table? Is equity going to keep the lights on? It's not.
Never.
And so it's, it's fantastic if you've done that. Yay, you've achieved this, your debt is gone, but you don't have anything to sustain you.
Well, and you were telling me about a book too that you had read, like the Gardener story, Wealthy Gardener, or something like that.
Our community, again, once again, helped me out because I ran out of books. And so I started into The Wealthy Gardener. And there was a parable, a story in there where these two gentlemen are talking, and the one guy says, yeah, I want to, sell off my business and, move down to Florida because that's where I want to be. And the friend says, wow, that's great. So when are you going to do that? Well, kids are in grade school. So when they graduate high school, all right, high school graduation comes along. Hey, so you're going to move down to Florida? Oh, well, when the kids get out of college. Okay, so another 4 years goes by. Kids are out of college. Hey, so are you moving down to Florida? Well, and it was highlighting what we've kind of alluded to here as a bit, is we are procrastinating. We are moving the goalpost as a way to give ourselves an out of not kind of looking outside of the norm, if you will.
So Ernie, if we're going to take, just again, I just wanted to make sure early on in our discussion that we lay out the potential pitfalls, right? If anything, our objective in this journey with you is to be the guide. You're going to have to play the course. Joey's a big golfer. When I say big golfer, he's wide. He's not good. He likes to play, but you get the point. Bigger golfer, and he loves to talk about like playing golf. So if you think about the guide on a golf course, Joey, that's the caddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The caddy's job is to help you avoid the hazards, to keep you out of trouble. And this is what I really want to make sure as the beginning of this podcast, or we've gone a little bit, is to talk about those potential hazards. Because if we don't understand the hazards and we just want to get up and hit the big dog on every single thing, then we may not realize we're playing on a par 3, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is the Island Green number 17 at Sawgrass here. I want to make sure that we're keeping this in focus. So let's start transitioning though, Ernie. I want to hear from you as relates to how do we start helping people pay down debt, but do it in a way that allows them to build assets. Tell me a few things that you're seeing people do or helping coach people through that process.
Yeah. I think that the idea of taking over and owning debts, that can make a lot of sense to people. Just like we're talking about, sometimes it's not beneficial for you to pay off debts. Well, if they're being paid off, it has to benefit somebody. So who's benefiting from that? And can it be you? So when we talk about helping people implement IBC, it's about helping them oftentimes take over debts. So really, let's talk about who benefits when people pay off debts. What's the gain there? Because somebody has to win. Money's going somewhere.
Well, I mean, we have a tool that helps someone figure out that gain, don't we?
Yeah, the Priority Payoff Guide, you can actually, if you're in the community, you can go to Paying Off Debt Like a Boss, the course, And there's actually the priority payoff guide in there that tracks which one of your debts are in the danger zone, like meaning the ones you should focus on paying off first, to the ones that are really kind of in that caution zone or in the one that's like safe. And so it helps you prioritize which one should I be focused on first. And then maybe I can start looking for opportunities faster than I maybe would have thought.
Well, and the beauty of that is a really simple calculation. And where in that formula does it talk about interest rate?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Isn't that awesome? Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, he goes in to talk about it's not the rate of interest in which it is the problem. It's the
volume.
It's the volume of interest. And when you look at this calculator, all it's doing is taking the balance of your loan, it's dividing it by your minimum required payment, and it's then creating a score. And then we have then used this guide to help tell you whether or not that score is an issue, a problem, something you need to get rid of. And then when you're working with somebody like Ernie and Mark, you can actually partner to understand, how do I build up an asset? Because that's what our goals need to be, right? We need to start building up things above that line we were talking about a second ago, creating assets. And then we're going to go attack debt, pay off debt like a boss. We're going to use these assets, these insurance contracts, as our growing instrument, something that we never want to quit compounding on, then go over and take over these debts when it's safe for us to do.
Which, let me point this out. What you just pointed out is that there's options. By using infinite banking, you're taking your excess surplus money that you would have normally been putting towards paying down that debt, whether it be a mortgage or a student loan or a car loan or whatever it may be, and you're putting it above that line. You're putting it into your control. Because a lot of people ask us, so, hey, should I be doing this velocity banking and paying down my house as fast as possible? The answer is no. Why is it? Because the money that you're putting into your house is not in your control anymore, right? It's in someone else's. The bank now owns that equity, and now you're subject to only being able to get access under their terms. But if I have the policy that I'm now funding with that excess surplus, and I get to a point where that surplus is enough to pay off the debt, I can choose at that point to pay it off in full, or to find this awesome opportunity, which now maybe my eyes are open to see because I have cash in my control. Anyway, point being, I'm kind of going on and on here, but you're providing yourself options, not requirements, and not less control.
Way I love that. The way you can pay down debt like a boss is when you have built up enough cash that you could stroke a check to eliminate that debt immediately without any risk then from that point forward. Because the risk exists while you're paying down a debt. There's risk because, let's for instance, a house. If you lose your job and you can't make the mortgage payment, they don't automatically just turn around and say, okay, we'll take the house, but we'll leave you all those equity payments, those extra principal payments you made. That's not the way it works. They sell your house. If they happen to sell it for more than what you owe on it, then they're required to give it back to you. But what's their motivation to sell it for more?
Negative.
They don't care. Their whole objective is to get out their money. That's the only objective they have, and to get it back as fast as possible. So if they fire sell your house for 50 cents on the dollar because you've paid down 50% of the mortgage balance, shame on you.
Yeah.
So, but when you can pay down, when you've built up this cash, and I've seen people do this, and by the way, we're getting ready to interview and have a guest speaker come on who's paid down over $900,000, $984,711 to be exact. And he did it in 39 months. That's right. 39 months. He did that, but he didn't do it by writing checks. He did it by building up assets in these insurance contracts and then turning around and paying off the debt. From that position, he was in control.
The boss.
He was able to then have both the debt paid off, but also the asset. Because as we're talking here, our objective is to build cash flow. And as he started building cash flow, he started replenishing these insurance policies, but he never gave up control and growth on the money. And I think that's the thing that's missed in the pay down debt world, is that they're so focused on paying down debt, they don't realize, as you said early on, Joey, is that this time, the amount of time we have to live on this earth is limited. And none of us know how long that's going to be. But every year that goes by, we're closer to it. And that's one more year that our money cannot be at work and growing for us. So we have to find ways to do it. We've got tools. Go inside the community. Go to Paying Down Debt Like a Boss. You can see a lot of the things we talked about today. You can get the resource, the Priority Payoff Guide. You can start figuring it out. But I want you to take the next step, which is then to take control and to start the infinite banking concept. So take that IBC 101 course. The next step is for you to get inside the inner circle, because that's where we're getting ready to have this conversation with our guest today. And we're going to be showing exactly how he paid off $984,711 worth of debt in 39 months. Thank you for listening to this episode of the IBC Roundtable. We're going to be back here next week. We're going to be hitting another topic that I know you're going to love. But now we got to belly up to the roundtable. Let's do it.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.